This is Taiwan Talk.
This is Taiwan Talk on ICRT.
I'm Eric Smith, and this is Taiwan Talk. Actually, today we have a very special edition of Taiwan Talk. We're going to be hosting I guess you could call it a mini debate. And the topic is something that's been on the minds of a lot of people in Taiwan recently, and that is the fourth nuclear power plant. And here today to discuss the pros and cons of this, I have Professor Min Li from the Nuclear Engineering and Science Department of National Tsinghua University, and you're also affiliated with the Zhonghua Nuclear Society. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And on the opposing side, we have Professor Gloria Xu from the National Taiwan University's Department of Atmospheric Sciences. And you're also associated with the Taiwan Environmental Protection Union.
That's correct.
Thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate your time. Let's get right to it. I think like a lot of other people in Taiwan, I'm on the fence about this issue. On the one hand, wages have been stagnant or falling for about 2 decades. Prices are rising. Many people can't afford to pay higher power bills. We've spent a lot of money on the fourth power plant. We would have to pay a lot in cancellation fees if we cancel it. Taiwan's carbon footprint is horrible. We need to do something about that. Nuclear energy is a low-carbon energy source. On the other hand, an accident would be catastrophic. We all accept that. Taiwan is a disaster-prone nation. We have earthquakes, typhoons. No savings in electricity prices could ever compensate for a meltdown. So I want to start by asking the anti-camp, led by Professor Gloria Xu. Renewable energy is a good thing, but a lot of people agree it's not ready to replace conventional sources. Taiwan imports 90% of energy. In some ways, isn't nuclear power a responsible domestic solution to our energy needs?
First, I have to correct what you mentioned before. There's no so-called high cancellation fee. Second, I don't agree nuclear is low carbon technology. We are not trying to promote renewable energy to replace all the existing energy at once. So I think the problem we are worried about. First, there's a fundamental danger of nuclear electricity using nuclear power. Second, the fourth nuclear power plant, it's built very, very badly. It's not safe. There's numerous records say the Taipower, like for example, alternate 1700 design by General Electric. And also in Taiwan, we have very poor regulation. We have insufficient safety culture, and we have lots of human errors. I think we have no choice but to cancel it.
All right, Professor Li, what's your take on that?
Well, I think Taiwan has been using nuclear power for more than 30-something years. Okay, it is safe. We have a good operation record. We are number 2 in year of 2011 among the world for the best performance of the nuclear power plant operation. Okay, we know how to operate, how to use nuclear power. Now, for the other point of view is talking about the fourth nuclear power plant is not safe. Professor Xu has mentioned there are 1,700 of the design change without the approval of the General Electric. It has a record. All 1,700 changes has been recorded, okay, has been ratified by the General Electric. Now for the fourth nuclear power plant, we are in the final stage of making power test, making the system test. The test is to make sure those systems are functioning properly, to make sure the plant is going to be safe in the operation. Okay, so I'm not agree with her point that the fourth nuclear power plant is not safe.
Can I throw one question to you? When it comes to the storing of waste from atomic plants, we have some on Lanyu, right, on the island.
We have
but we don't have a solution for this yet. What would you say to that?
Well, we have identified several locations as the candidate of the low-level nuclear waste repository. Now we are in the stage of asking the people's opinion. You can use a public referendum in the local area whether to accept the location as a site. Now, around the world, there are more than 100 sites for the low-level waste. It's not a technical issue. It's a political problem.
Thanks for tuning into Taiwan Talk. Join us tomorrow for another round of discussion on this very important topic. For ICRT News, I'm Eric Smith.
This is Taiwan Talk.
This is Taiwan Talk on ICRT.
I'm Eric Smith, and thanks for tuning into Taiwan Talk. Today we're featuring part 2 of a discussion on the fate of the controversial 4th nuclear power plant. Arguing in favor of finishing the atomic power station is National Tsinghua University professor Li Ming, and speaking for the opposition side is National Taiwan University professor Gloria Xu. I asked Professor Li about the chance of an accident. So we've talked a lot about economics and we've talked about power generation, but I want to address a point to Professor Li here. We can talk about all of these things, low carbon, rising costs, blackouts, power reserve, but when I mention the word Fukushima or Chernobyl, it suddenly shifts the debate away from economics to something a lot more personal. It's been about 60 years since the planet first started using atomic power, and we've had 3 major accidents in that period. How can you argue against that?
Let me keep the Chernobyl accident aside.
Okay.
The reason keeping that aside because the major reason for Chernobyl disaster is a design fault. For design fault, you really cannot, if it happened, okay, you really cannot do anything about it, okay? We use so-called light water reactor. We use ordinary water as the coolant, okay? The accident we can have is a heat removal accident. 3 Mile Island is an example, okay? Then Fukushima is another one. Now, we are probably almost 30 years from the 3 Mile Island now. You won't see the second similar accident as 3 Mile Island. As a nuclear industry, know how to make improvement. Then talking about the Fukushima. Fukushima is a natural disaster. The earthquake plus the tsunami. For a nuclear power plant, we have so-called design basis. The design basis is according to the natural environment of your plant. For Japanese plant, the scale of the earthquake is beyond the design basis, but the plant is safe. All the major safety components are functioning well. Then here comes the tsunami. The tsunami exceeds the design basis a lot, so it's damaged the equipment. After the Fukushima event, National Science Council of Taiwan make a study. Their conclusion is we don't need to worry about the tsunami because our design basis is there. Our design basis is there.
Totally blind confidence. If you remember last July, the Japanese assessment for the Fukushima report came out. They say the conclusion is this is man-made disaster because the government constantly ignore the warning of possibility of big earthquake and tsunami. They say our design is enough, just like what happened in Taiwan. They always say, oh, no, it's not possible here. We are well prepared. Look what happened.
Okay,
Do you
well...
feel confident?
Well, let me keep it this way. It's not the nuclear business or not nuclear academia say that. It's based on the research from a people with major in geology. They study the fault around this in this area and make the conclusion that what kind of earthquake, the biggest earthquake we can have, then we can come up with the design basis. Of course, you can always hear someone say they are wrong. They are something they don't consider. There's evidence. There's a model to extrapolate to predict the future. The problem is which model you use.
It seems like it boils down to a decision that everyone's going to have to make as to whether or not they feel the risk and rewards are worth it. But before we go, if you don't mind, if you could just give me one very short closing statement that sums up your philosophy regarding this issue. Professor Xu, if you would.
Nuclear energy is totally different from the other energy. Nuclear energy have a negative learning curve. They are becoming more and more expensive. So if you think about it, no really democratic, liberalized economy will build nuclear power plant without government subsidies or specialized form of rate return. Only in totalitarian states, because they are just not economical.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, Professor Lee.
Well, after Fukushima accident, a lot of countries has made a decision. They need nuclear power. For example, United Kingdom, United States, Korea. They have 38% of the nuclear power from nuclear. Now they're building more nuclear power plant. Just imagine, 10 years from now, what's the difference of the carbon footprinting will determine the future of our country.
I'm Eric Smith, and thanks for tuning in to Taiwan Talk. A very special thank you to Professor Gloria Xu and Professor Li Ming.